So we create the right ambience, body, soul, and spirit, and then we just shoot. Even the one you were just playing right before this one, it's all part of it. It was not just guns and... Thank you. I think we'll stand, please. Thank you very much. We have evoked the spirits of the ancestors and they will be with us. Madam Susie Adoboy, we invite you to give us the first speech on behalf of women, youth. Brief, straight to the point. Thank you very much. Let them sanitize this first, then you can speak. Thank you very much. Sorry, just take your seat. I think Dr. Kumbo, sorry, give us the welcome address first as the chairman of the planning committee. Thank you, sir.
Thank you much, Kulku. Your Excellency, the former president, our chairman, Comrade Ofosu Ampofo, the general secretary, who is a general in all respects, my colleague comrade, Honorable Danda Bodakwi, my former deputy ranking, Honorable Dr. Aveji, comrades, friends, and then Nana. It is heartwarming that we meet here this morning, 41 years after an event that was later to change the course of the history of Ghana took place. We do, as the moderator said, recognize the abnormal and yet normal present that we are following in terms of the crisis associated with the COVID-19 difficulties and challenges. Certainly, Your Excellency, crises and revolutions have been classmates. Either a crisis situation triggers off a revolution, or the revolutionary situation brings in its wake some form of crisis. So there is certainly no contradiction in attempting to celebrate, though in a virtual environment, the events of June 4th as we experienced it. Most of us here were certainly not too young at that time, and we have followed that history. We have followed the twists and turns. We've seen the linkages between June 4th, 31st December, and the National Democratic Congress Party. But what we need to do, let me indicate on behalf of the Planning Committee that we did take a number of considerations in arriving at the theme, strengthening the spirit of patriotism, resilience, and integrity in difficult times. Indeed, if the ideals of June 4th are being kept, observed, and respected, certainly Ghana would be able to overcome the challenges with the pandemic. A lot of discipline is required to deal with the pandemic. A lot of accountability and probity is required to deal with the pandemic, just as integrity and resilience is important. And so within the context of this team, I employ all of us to think deeply about the lessons that we learned during June 4th, those we do not learn, and to see the relevance of those lessons. Is it not ironic and interesting that countries that have got nuclear warheads, ground-to-air missiles, are all now abandoning those things and hiding under the closets of their rooms because of an enemy that we cannot even see, let alone talk about its size? This gives us a very, very significant idea that no matter how powerful you are, no matter how invincible you think you are, the reality of our life is such that there will come moments that that power, that wealth, that invisibility would eventually vanish into thin air. The second thing I like to register is that no matter how powerful you are, there is no temporal force that can keep down the anger of a determined mass of people. There is no way and how many people you can kill to keep down the determination of people, as we saw during the period of June 4th. As we traverse the Fourth Republic of Ghana and the constitutional rule, it becomes important that nobody should delude himself that we are in a new normal times in which everything goes, in which everybody can get away with impunity. No, we need to rethink that position again. Those who saw the political environment in June 4th will certainly remember that very few people expected that the very next moment this country was going to explode in the way it did. I do not see any reason why anybody should believe that the impunity, undemocratic conduct that takes place in Ghana today can be an exception. Fellow comrades, let's also use this opportunity to touch on an issue that people have touched on very tangentially, and that has to do with the nature of our democracy. We have always celebrated ourselves as a beacon of democracy. I say it is too early to celebrate. The form of democracy that perhaps approximates the anticipation of June 4th is that the ordinary man should be given the opportunity to elect his or her leader. And that is purely a procedural form of electoral democracy. We need to go beyond that to deal with the more substantive forms of democracy. That we don't use electoral democracy as a process to elect people and leave them to their own designs and wait for another election ritual come 4 years. The entire cycle of 4 years of every governance has to be checkmate at every point by the mass of the people. Fellow comrades, it is in this context that the controversy that is surrounding a new voters register should be situated. And this is the time when we talk of integrity, we talk of patriotism. It is within the challenges of COVID-19 that we have to locate the decision whether we should mass our people up again unnecessarily in a risk to actually re-register, when there is no scientific evidence whatsoever to show that the existing register cannot be used for that purpose, regardless of the minor imperfections it might contain. We normally say a bird in hand is worth 10 in the bush. What happens if we take the entire country through this risk, only to end up with a register that is worse than what we have? We of the June 4th use this opportunity to join many of the voices of reason that have spoken on this topic and say that we are indeed in a new normal and it calls for new conditions. If the idea of a new register was conceived at normal times, the circumstances have radically changed and we need to use the standards of the new normal in our sense of judgment. We say a word to the wise isn't enough. Your Excellencies, my colleague comrades, I do know a number of the speakers who will be following me will be touching on very important themes of June 4th. Let me use this opportunity to welcome all of you and thank you for actually coming out at this time when we should all be observing the stay-at-home pronouncements. We also use this opportunity finally to extend our empathy to our frontline health workers who have been risking their lives since the outbreak of the pandemic. We wish Ghana well, and we know Ghana will not slide backwards. We only know she can move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kumbo. And I like the use of the word temporal. It's got nothing to do with temporary. Temporal is more celestial. That even that force cannot assuage and stop the anger of the people. Nothing temporal, not temporary. Thank you very much. Madam Susie Adoboy will now listen to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. MC. Mr. Chairman, Your Excellency, former President J.J. Rawlings, the National Executive of the NDC, Honorable Deputy Minority Leader, Togbe Dunyo, distinguished guests, our friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, the opportunity has once again presented itself for us to meet here to celebrate or commemorate June 4th revolution. And I want to use this privileged opportunity to commend our founder, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, and all those who played a part in that event, which later gave birth to our great party, the NDC. First and foremost, the June 4th, as has been accounted by our chairman, was an uprising which occurred because the economic situation in the country was run so badly that people could not make ends meet. Food, which was a basic necessity, was hard to come by. There was extreme poverty. I was a little girl in primary school, but I still do remember what my parents went through at the time to feed us. There was corruption in the country, lack of social amenities like potable water was hard to find because our engineers who should have mounted the water plant all had traveled outside the country for greener pastures. So people drank unwholesome water, which caused waterborne diseases like bilharzia and guinea worm. I still do remember the days our founder was going around countryside helping people. The trust of the people was abused because those who were exercising those power forgot they were holding the power in trust for the people. Our workers, professional teachers, doctors, nurses abandoned our hospitals. So women went to the hospital to give birth. They died, their children, their babies also died. This was the situation that called for the uprising. Civil society organizations, the Ghanaian populace in general, all rose up to fight for what belongs to them. Ghana became a laughing stock by our neighbors as our citizens migrated to these countries like Nigeria, Ivory Coast. They were being humiliated because they did menial jobs they wouldn't have done way back here in Ghana. For example, in Ivory Coast, during a national quiz competition, the children were asked, in which country do people queue for toilet rolls? And the answer was Ghana, and that was correct. So that was the situation in Ghana at the time. And so people resorted to producing local-made soap like Don't Touch Me. There was extreme corruption and mismanagement of our economy, resources, in those who were in charge of governance. The spirit of patriotism, which is the readiness to fight for and even die for one's country, was almost dead, as those in the helm of affairs plundered the nation and cared less about the plight of the suffering masses. Corruption became endemic and almost accepted everywhere. Today, the very thing that sent us to June 4th are still here with us. Youth unemployment is still a problem. Accountability by those in authority is still a problem in our country. People are amassing wealth for themselves, forgetting that they were put in position to fight for the people. So the ills that the revolution fought against, which is corruption, nepotism, unemployment, lack of education, healthcare, are still here with us. Today, accountability is far away from us. For instance, despite the key program of this government, or key policy, which is free SHS, parents are still struggling to get boarding facilities for their children. And so they resort to renting accommodation for these young ones who later on find themselves practicing all kinds of social vices. Also, despite the promise that we have abundant food stock, people are still struggling for a decent meal a day. Again, in spite of the numerous anti-corruption state institutions that we have, in recent times, you know, we have Office of the Special Prosecutor. Irrespective of all these anti-corruption agencies, we still have corruption as a major challenge in this country. The 1992 Constitution involves every facet of life: farmers, barbers, market women, lawyers, drivers, all professionals contributed to the 1992 Constitution, which gave birth to the Fourth Republic. But should we, as citizens, look on whilst our constitutional bodies are being used against the people? No. Constitutional bodies like the Electoral Commission, who seemingly are being manipulated and controlled by carefully executing a grand design to hoodwink the entire citizenry with their intended new voter registration without listening to the major opposition party, the NDC, is a cause for worry. Let's be reminded of what happened recently in Hong Kong, where the Chinese government tried severally to calm down demonstrators. Now let us even look at the almighty America, where citizens are demonstrating because of a singular act. It is important as citizens to demand accountability from people we put in power. We need to conduct our affairs in an honest and forthright and incorruptible manner so that our countrymen and women will see and testify how morally sound we are with regards to the country's resources. And finally, it should be noted that the key words in this year's theme, as chosen by the Planning Committee, patriotism, resilience, and integrity, are action words directed at us, those who believe in the revolution, of which serve as the watershed of our political tradition. On our side, like the Israelites in Egypt, who needed to be liberated from oppression, discrimination and high-handedness of Pharaoh, we need to work hard and relentlessly, like Moses and Aaron, to win the December election to liberate Ghanaians from their suffering. And before I take my seat, I wish to commend all frontline workers in the fight against COVID-19. May God bless us all. Long live June 4th Revolution. Long live the NDC. Long live Mother Ghana. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now take a message from one of the deputy women organizers of the National Democratic Congress, Mami Efua Sechi Ado. Thank you, Mami Efua.
Our venerable founder, President Jerry John Rawlings, the chairman of our party, Mr. Ofosu Ampofo, the general secretary of the NDC, Mr. Johnson Asiedun Ketia, all national executives and the NDC gathered here, members of the diplomatic corps, senior comrades, elders of the party, Nime, Name, friends of the media, viewers and listeners. It is with humility that I stand before you, representing all the hard-working women of our country. Personally, it is also a great honor for me to stand in front of you today to mark the 41st anniversary of the June 4th uprising. Indeed, it is an honor I don't take for granted at all. I am grateful to His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings and the Planning Committee for this honor. Comrades, as our former President, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, has constantly reiterated over these past 41 years, the June 4th, 1979 uprising was a military manifestation of the long-pressed and simmering desires of the civil masses at a time when they could no longer take the decadence and rot that festered at the highest echelon of political power, which actually sends Ghana into the abyss of corruption, nepotism, greed, and intolerance. June 4th, 1979 was the manifestation of the intense inner wailings of an oppressed and depressed people. We needed to break free from the shackles of rotten national leadership and insufferable foul-smelling corruption, which even the heavens couldn't stand. It happened because the people willed it. Those junior officers, led by our gallant Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings at the time, felt the pain of the masses and gave expression to it. It was a people-inspired uprising. It was Ghana's French Revolution. It was Ghana's Russian Revolution. It was Ghana's American Revolution. The people yearned and hungered for it. They cried for it from the fiery depths of their bellies and were ready to die for that freedom which should not be taken away from us. And yes, like in all people-inspired revolutions, this house called Ghana needed to be cleansed from those politicians who lacked integrity and unpatriotic leaders, who plundered the resources meant for all of us as Ghanaians. The resilience of the people in crying for that cleansing was heroic. 41 years on, we salute all the heroes and heroines who fell along the way as they pushed for the freedoms we so cherished and enjoy today. You'll forever be etched in the most sacred depths of our hearts. You gave women a voice in politics. And we promise you, our fallen heroes, that will ride on your wave of probity, accountability, and integrity, which you ingrained in us to brace the current blizzards raving our land by way of coronavirus pandemic, and the I will do whatever I want virus of the Electoral Commission and its commissioner, Madam Jane Mensah. It is evident that the EC is bent on risking the lives of millions of innocent Ghanaians with its plan to compile a new register of voters. It is evident that the EC is bent on risking the lives of millions of innocent Ghanaians with its plan to compile a new register of voters despite the loudest opposition from scores of civil society organizations, National House of Chiefs, several political parties, and the majority of Ghanaians. This Jane Mensah-led Electoral Commission has seen integrity slaughtered with reported evidence of rigging in the referendum that birthed the 6 new regions. It has lied on the face of documents to the citizens of this country. We see plain before our very eyes a president whose electoral machinery unleashed vicious assaults on harmless and armed citizens in the now famous Ayawaso by-elections, in a manner that left some of them crippled for life. Nana Addo subsequently issued a government paper dismissing the recommendations of the Commission's report that demanded criminal prosecutions for the hooliganism meted out that fateful dark day in our history. Justice was never served. For me, as an individual who escaped narrowly the evil of Ayawaso incident, I am best positioned to carry to you, Your Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, the sentiments of the victims of the said day. We pledge to keep this truth and love of our country as imbibed in us by you. It is that fearless spirit that will see the NDC, your beloved party, winning the next elections. I call on the EC to be a mother, not just a woman, and listen to the cries of Ghanaians. Her stubbornness and foolishness must give way to reason. But we are very well aware that she will not budge. She's demonstrated that so many times. I called for the spirit of June 4th to embolden us to stand up, step out, and fight the oppressor's rule. Like the warrior queen, Ya Asantewa, we the women will stand side by side, shoulder by shoulder, with our men in this fight. The role of women in all these struggles, be it June 4th, 31st December, and the formation of the NDC, that's the role of the 31st played cannot be underestimated. As daughters of the June 4th movement, it has become more pressing that our poor beloved party, it has become more pressing that our beloved party, the National Democratic Congress, reconciles with the spring source of its spirit and formation, thereby reinvigorating our ranks and files in our bid to unionize around our principles upon which started our course on this historic day of June 4th, 1979. Come what may, we shall overcome the blizzard, just as our forebears, led by Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, overcame the turbulent era in this nation 4 decades ago with a spirit of oneness. Because we in the NDC appreciate the need to join forces not only in fighting COVID-19, but also in uprooting the rot that has festered in Ghana at the presidency and several other state agencies for the past few years that the MPP government has been in power. And in that same spirit, we look forward to joining hands with our father and forefathers, former President Jerry John Rawlings, who we know is the epitome of integrity, probity, and accountability, to win power from the NPP and President Nana Akufo-Addo in this year's general elections. 4 together, not even the EC's hurdles can stop us from winning back power on the 7th of December 2020 polls. We do not have another chance provided by the June 4th. Yet, December 7th, 2020 provide us the opportunity to take back government and do what is right for the Ghanaian people. We will be armed with our voters' ID card, angry at corruption, nepotism, ethnocentrism, and deceit. Indeed, these are difficult times, but the strength and resolve of the NDC men and women of integrity cannot be broken. Even in these turbulent times. For we are one. We are united and resolute in our rescue mission. We are marching towards victory 2020. Long live our founder, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. Long live the National Democratic Congress. And God bless our homeland, Ghana. Thank you very much.
We will now take a message from the Parliamentary Caucus, represented by Deputy Minority Leader, Honorable James Kluche Abeji. This is June 4th. We are remembering June 4th, and we pray that we move in that line. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much. The founder of our great party, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings, the chairman of the great NDC, Dr. Samuel Ampofo, the General Secretary, Mr. Johnson Asiedu Nketia, His Excellency Ambassador Dana Bodakpi, Togui Dunyo of Atamve. Other protocols duly observed. On behalf of my leader, Honorable Haruna Idrisu, I convey greetings from the minority of Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. Mr. Chairman, celebrating the anniversary, which is the 41st anniversary of the June 4 uprising, in the difficult times, which make it that the celebration be done by way of a virtual platform. It is something that probably will not make me to say a happy anniversary. It is about 41 years ago when President Rawlings and some other junior officers sacrificed their lives to liberate the people of Ghana from corruption, bad governance, frustration among the general public, and the lack of discipline in this country. 41 years ago, here we are as a country where we have the Fourth Republic, which has lasted for 28 years. The uprising gave birth to the revolution, which was based on principles of fairness, equity, and creation of equal opportunities for all Ghanaians. 41 years down the line, I wish to pose a question. How are we faring as a country in relation to these principles? The principles of fairness, equity, and equal opportunity for all of us. How are we faring as a country? I think that as a political party, the NDC, these principles are still relevant. And I urge all of us to continue to uphold all these principles and to fight for the poor in our society. We, the minority in Parliament, will do our best to continue to fight for the rule of law. We'll continue to demand accountability from the government. We'll also continue to fight for the ordinary people on our streets. The minority in Parliament is totally against the compilation of a new voters register during this difficult time, a register which will want to be compiled within a period of less than 6 months to the general election. We are totally against the compilation of the new register, and I know other civil society organizations, other bodies are equally against the compilation of the register. We in Parliament, from the minority, are also against it. All those people who fought and who lost their lives during this uprising, which has given birth to the Fourth Republic, which we are enjoying as a country, may their souls rest in perfect peace. I thank you very much.
Well, we will now invite Comrade Ambassador, His Excellency Daniel Koshi Abodakwi. I'm sure he will have a lot to tell us, a few things to tell us, to put us back on what all this June 4th thing stood for and how far we have come. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Kogu. 20 days ago, in the quiet of my room and in my heart, I marked what clearly is the trailblazer of 31st, the trailblazer of 4 June 1979. The day passed unheralded, but President Rawlings, I salute you on this occasion and pray for God's continuous guidance for you, because it was that determination to help right the wrongs of our society then that gave birth to what we are marking today. Distinguished comrades, senior party colleagues, fellow compatriots, this year's celebration of the glorious June 4th uprising is taking place at a time that is both crucial and critical for humankind across the globe, as COVID-19 continues to relentlessly assault the human resource and economies of both developed and developing world. As the nations of the world scramble in panic to find a possible antidote to this irrepressible hidden enemy, which does not differentiate between races, creed, or classes, in its inexorable march towards destruction, I believe that it is only that indomitable spirit of resilience in man that continues to give us hope of survival. It is that spirit of resilience and positive defiance that is providing the courage, determination, and conviction that this unseen enemy will also eventually be subdued and overcome. Comrades, at this difficult juncture in our lives, however, humanity's victory is hugely dependent on the type of leadership that our leaders provide. Unfortunately, whilst we are under siege the world over by the COVID-19 virus, we are also witnessing unprecedented levels of arrogance of power by duty bearers across our political, public, traditional, and or civil administrative structures of governance in our country, Ghana, today. Leaders of all categories are either forgetting or are refusing to remember that sovereignty resides in the people, and that ultimately all leaders must be accountable to the people. Duty bearers at the various sectors of our social, political, economic fabric ought to bear in mind that the offices they occupy are not ends in themselves, but are meant to achieve the greater good of the people. It is the refusal of these duty bearers to acknowledge this fact that results in chaos and upheavals, of which history is replete with concrete examples to guide the present generation. Fellow compatriots, before our very eyes, the so-called greatest democracy is deterring most dangerously into chaos because of the overbearing postures of political leadership and a complete drift towards anocracy, in which leaders, instead of keeping to the tested and hallowed principles of government for the people and by the people, are surreptitiously replacing it with a system that is part democracy and part dictatorship. Comrades, June 4, 1979 is and will always be unique in our history because it forcefully drove home the point that those governing must be accountable to the governed at all times. Apart from the governed holding duty bearers accountable, another key and critical governance principle worthy of note is participatory democracy. Thanks to the June 4th and 31st December revolutions, certain key structures of participatory democracy were captured into our national constitution, particularly parliaments, municipal district assemblies, and unit committees. Regrettably, these important structures of participation have been systematically rendered ineffective or completely made insignificant through the overconcentration of power in the executive, in this case, the president. This is why our governance system has virtually become anocratic. This is why 41 years after that bold and glorious uprising, when the ranks and some few young officers took upon themselves the most courageous, altruistic, and patriotic challenge to clean up and restore the ship of state buoyed in the right direction, we're still finding ourselves in troubled waters. Fellow comrades, our country seems to be slipping off its more into troubled seas. There is deep-seated cynicism among our body politic because of perceived arrogance of power and absence of true participation and political compromise and consensus building. Let me quickly here that we have traveled far because of the far-reaching political democratic compromises that we have made since the advent of the Fourth Republic, even in fashioning our electoral system. Comrades and fellow compatriots, as we mark this landmark occasion of June 4th, let us be guided by the events of 41 years ago and work hard to make our governance system truly democratic and not anocratic, which is partly democratic and partly autocratic. For that is the surest way through which we can build a sustained national team spirit and the needed esprit de corps in order to confront and overcome current and future challenges. Let us continue to observe the necessary protocols toward keeping safe from COVID-19 because the challenges ahead would require that we are 100% fit. Before I take my seat, let me once again salute those gallant men who made that great sacrifice 41 years ago to give our country a new opportunity to restart on a better course. God bless the June 4th uprising. God bless our country, Ghana. God bless all the heroes who made it possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Danabodaki. As I mentioned earlier on, today we have in our midst a gentleman. He saw it all. He was there, an active participant. But they have remained in the background for all these 41 years for good reason, or for good reasons, because they did not do it for glory. They did it because it had to be done. They had to support something that was happening, because minus that, this country was going to blow up into something else. Today, he's here. He has a story to tell. Not all of it about Dalamagonaika town. The hunter does not say it all. But I think today we'll hear something small, something interesting. More of June 4th, what it stood for, and why we must not allow the spirit of integrity, probity, and accountability to die. Retired W1 Anthony Aveme, please, you have the opportunity to share something with us. Thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause, please.
Your Excellency, former President of Ghana, all protocols observed. We military men don't want to talk plenty, but I know most of you who are here. I know most of you. The General Secretary, I was with him at the Consultative Assembly. I've heard you were my former schoolmate, Kuvodia Sektek, aren't? Yes, and he's my old general. So I know him. So you are all patriots. In fact, I need not recount the history of June 4th, because we have celebrated it for over 40 years. We are now in the 41st year. What happened is that I need to recount something small, because we have forgotten about 15th May, which triggered it all. And as a young soldier by then, an LAC, okay, as LAC, who was just going to work, was halted at the main gate. And at the main gate, we were asked to go and take our weapons. Little did we know that something was going to happen. I had earlier encountered my former president, Jerry John Rawlings. He used to come to the session in which I was, which was the photographic session. Because by then, being a jet pilot, he used to go and take photographs. In that office that we process it. In one of our encounters, he said, he called me long boot, because by then I was very small, the boot was more than my leg. So he called me long boot. He said, long boot, don't you think that what is happening in the country, there's something to be done? As a young soldier who didn't know what he meant, I said, sir, but you are the officers, you can't direct us what to do. He said, bullshit, you are not a man. I didn't by then know his intentions. It was only after I have gone to work at the gate, I saw people, they said, go and take your weapons. We all took our weapons. Some few officers had been arrested at the gate. We were waiting for instructions when Reki came in. With, I believe, somebody he has trust in, coming with Major Suleimana. That was where he realized that things were going wrong. There, we had to surrender. Of course, when they came with their muwaks, they were also not armed to the core at that time. We were armed. We had bullets, but they weren't armed. But because we didn't know what was happening, we thought they were allies. They were They themselves who were coming without what they needed to come with. They were afraid of us also. We were also afraid of them, because we didn't know how armed they were. So they arrested us. We were kept in the Air Force. We were kept in the Air Force. We were denied going back to our various homes. Unfortunately, one of my mates died. And during the celebration of his funeral, there was news going on that Sunday, when you hear anything, it is going to happen. It is going to happen. And that if you hear anything come out, it is old man again who is on the scene. And it did happen. It did happen. And then when it happened, there was no direction at the initial stage. There was no direction. But what was happening in the barracks, most of you have said what was happening in the social front. But what was happening at the barracks was not anything to go write home about. Because our officers has, fortunately or unfortunately, regretted the junior ranks. Our dresses, our things that we need to work with were nothing to go home about. And you know, by then we were guarding commissioners and big men. Sometimes you even go to their houses. When you even need water to drink, their wives will ask you, from which cab? Meaning their dogs were even more important than us. So there was an element of enmity among the other ranks. And so when this thing came, and then when the trial came, and our former president stood tall to say that leave these people, I am the person to be held responsible, and recounted what his objectives and aims were, that triggered the whole thing. That people who were wearing their specs were removing it to be private soldiers running away. And at that time, I trusted our president, because if it had not been for his magnanimity, a lot of officers would have perished. I remember he has to go to Takrady, where the Navy people had surrounded most of their enemies and wanted to eliminate them. He went and found a strategy out. And that was where white became this thing, that they gave it a holy war, and everybody was clad in white. Went on a route march in town. Those who were hiding saw him and came out. That was it. But to cut everything short, June 4th, like you have said, is to bring back integrity, probity, and accountability. At the early stages, who dare you even be at a checkpoint and receive a secret from a friend you know? People tell me to be a bribe. And your end was in sight. So it was terrible. But going on, you know, we cannot continue with military rule for long. Even though he has assured us that it was not a coup, but a revolution. A lot of things happened. And you know, those of you who have been reading the history of June 4th know a lot of changes happened, constitution, a whole lot of things happened. And that time, even those who don't matter in society and who were assumed to know nothing were in the Consultative Assembly. And so everybody's input was in the Constitution. So we had the 1992 Constitution. And of course, after ruling for long, there is a need to go back to constitutional rule to consolidate the gains which the process has made. So we started, and he became the first civilian elected president after the process. Now going on, in the Constitution, there were so many things to deny him. I was there, and Mr. Esedion Katia was there. They were trying to use citizenship by birth, both parents being Ghanaians, a whole lot of things, age, and a whole lot of things, just to make sure that the former president doesn't find a way to infiltrate into the political scene again. But luckily, at that time, there were a lot of cadres, there were a lot of good reasoning people. The downtrodden, who hitherto doesn't matter, were all in the Consultative Assembly. So somewhere along the line, those things were overcome. And eventually he stood and won. After winning, that was not the end. Probity, accountability, and whatever virtues that the Constitution the June 4 brought has to be consolidated. And so we kept moving on. But take note, even with the revolutionary process, some people came in not because their heart was with what the process was about, but what they can achieve for themselves and for their families. So you realize that most of them, when they say the boys are coming, at that time, Bankans was turbulent. Those of you who hitherto have stayed there will know. Turbulent. The boys are coming. You go for your weapons, off you go. Those who were afraid and could not go were those who found themselves in positions where they can amass wealth. So these things started gradually. And people thought that they can use those opportunities to amass wealth. But the force at that time was so great for them that they couldn't do it. So when we came back to civilian rule, people thought that it was time for materialism to work. And so they entered. People who were not part of the process, after finding that we have gone to constitutional rule, infiltrated into the party. And like I'm telling you, every institution, don't think that everybody within the institution wants you to achieve what you want to achieve. People infiltrated and they became the concerned people and all those who wanted to derail the process. Sometimes it is a strategy by the enemy to use their people to pretend they are, to divide you. Sometimes it is our own people who also, because they wanted gain for themselves and not for the process, come in. And they are the concerned people. They will come and confuse you so much so that you at the leadership will talk, you think that they like you. Meanwhile, they want to damage you. So every day before you wake up, your door. Every day before you wake up, they are door mouth. And such has been the thing we have been passing through. As leader of the party, I remember he used his blood to sign the constitution of the party. Whatever differences that we have, whatever our problems, those challenges are not meant to impair us, but improve us. That is the case of life. Life is not rosy. Any time that you think things are going smooth, know that there is danger ahead. So some of these trials, tribulations, confusion, misunderstanding, anti-Semitism, backbiting and all those things, they are bound to happen. But we need to stand firm. In fact, there are a lot of people who have followed this process and who are in hibernation now. Otherwise, the way the process started, people going here and there for courses and so on, which I was a part of. People went to GDR, went to Cuba, went to Bulgaria, other places and so on. If all of them, even though they are matured, they still are in the system. A lot who thought that they can come into the system, like my own colleagues, some of them who thought that they can make money. They can make money and gain. Most of them are gone. And the few that who committed themselves, we are not even remembering them today. So I would like to appeal to the party hierarchy that they should not always think that all those people who come into their corridors are people who have them in faith. There are a lot of them who are sent. There are a lot of them who are there for myopic reasons. Now, I am saying that the leader of the process knows where he wants to take the country to. The beauty of life is not about how happy you are, but how happy others are because of you. Trials and temptations will come, but it is not meant to damage you. It is meant to improve you, strengthen you for the cause. So I urge our leader to be strengthened by all the innuendos, the falsehoods, the lies, and whatever people are saying about him, because they are the work of our enemies planted. Even if Jesus Christ, who is the Son of God, came into this earth, but among him, the true disciples, there was a betrayer. How much more me and you who are here now? So I would like him to still stand up, knowing what he means, knowing what he is taking in the country too. Because nature, God, always produces somebody in a generation to achieve a certain purpose. And I believe that from what happened from 15 May to June 4th, and he succeeded, there is a force behind him. And for those who are carrying on today, should know that yes, some people sacrifice their lives, toiled to make it a possibility today. And so they should always listen to his counsel. Where he's even overwhelmed by certain desires and are not even listening, I think there are people he listens to. They can see him in chambers and so. Because now is the time to be really united. We are in a country where some people think that it belongs to them. We are not a part of the country. And some resources are also coming to them, and some people resources are not coming to them. So they have no role for leadership. So many things are happening. COVID-19 came to bring humility to mankind, because it knows no barrier. Whether you are president, whether you are what, COVID-19 can do. It is a form of bringing humility to everybody, and that we should reflect on what is happening. Even though we think it is not good, it is to change the face of mankind in this world. And for us to realize that as we are going, we need nothing to take along. People are in posh cars, are in high sky buildings, but they are not happy. I said they are happy, but they are not having joy or peace. Because joy and peace comes from God. Happiness, you can create it. You win a lotto, you are happy. You go and drink appetition, you are happy. You smoke weed, you are happy. But it doesn't last. But if you take your time and build your nation and get your wealth according to what God has planned you for, even when you are hungry, you are happy. You enjoy. So I'm happy the leadership of the party led by the chairman and the general secretary, they are here. I implore on you that all those people who are coming to you to pretend that they are lovers of NDC, I'm telling you, look back and watch them, because you think that they are good. They may be having certain agendas. Hold your founder, who has signed the constitution with his blood. Unite with him. There are numerous people like some of us who went into hibernation, because looking at what is happening, we did not understand. So last one, this thing was happening in Tamale. I was called to go into. I refused. I just gave some money. But this one I had wanted to refuse. But why I came out was that God creates you that you should also be a solution to a problem. So I'm reminding everybody, let's be fortitude. Let our former president take his lead in the party. Forget about everything that has happened, because without forgiveness, we will all perish. We are all sinners, and we all need forgiveness. So Lord, sir, this is what I have. Thank you very much. Party leaders, be assured and use your...
Thank you very much, W1 retired Anthony Afama. You've spoken, you've recounted a lot. The boys are coming. Well, we saw the revolution. So those who think, and you've spoken a lot, yes. But those ones who have come today and think that they have seen what they have not seen, we saw things. And that's why I'm imploring party leadership. I'm also imploring, because I just left party leadership. And so I'm imploring party leadership. Instill discipline in the party. You have let too many young men on the loose. It's not going to help anybody. General Secretary, your turn to speak. Thank you.
Your Excellency, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, leader of the revolution, permit me to write on the protocols earlier established by previous speakers. June 4th is recognized in NDC Constitution as Accountability Day. And we will continue to celebrate it so long as the NDC lives. We are celebrating it because we owe a duty not only to ourselves and to the party, but to our country, Ghana. Because June 4th is a significant part of the history of this country. And those who read history and they don't learn lessons from history to direct the course of the future are doomed to repeat history. And so we feel that it is very important that this day is commemorated so that the young and upcoming ones would understand what brought about June 4th and then take lessons from June 4th to guide the course of our country so that we do not keep repeating the history. When we talk about accountability, what are we talking about? Accountability is the foundation of representation. In the past, we were having direct democracy where we all meet and decide what we want. But as time went on, representative democracy emerged. So representation means the people who are in power are governing through borrowed sovereignty. And therefore, they owe it a duty to always account to the people who are the actual owners of the sovereignty. So we see accountability happening in the business field. All of us know that when shareholders give power to leadership of companies, there are times when the shareholders will meet and call the leadership to come and account for the resources they have put in their care. Much the same way, every leader, political leader, must see his leadership as operating with the powers that has been borrowed from the masses. And so that is the reason why there is always accountability and accountability day. In democracy, elections constitute the main form of accountability to the people who give leaders power at the time of elections. And in subsequent elections, the leaders will account for how they have used the power. And if it is the wish of the masses, they continue. If, in the opinion of the masses, the leadership has abused the power, then they have the right to replace them and put in place a new set of leadership. So any democracy in which the main means of accountability is blocked, then that democracy is headed for trouble. We saw it in June 4th. There were conditions precedent that necessitated the uprising in June 4th. Earlier speakers have spoken about the broken economy. And I'd like to add that the nation had a government that has actively blocked all means of peaceful change. And as it has been said by earlier philosophers, change is the only constant in nature. So human beings cannot block change. But it is up to us to direct change to be either peaceful or violent. It has also been said that those who block peaceful means of change are surely inviting violent ones. This is the law of nature. And so we will do well to learn the laws of nature and try to operate by them as a country if we need to move forward. Those who didn't know, the Achampong Akufo administration at that time blocked all means of changing the circumstances that Ghanaians were living in. They were fully aware of the frustrations, but they decided to hang on to power. At some point, they fabricated a concept called union government and tried to ask the opinion of people whether we wanted union government or not. The referendum that was to facilitate that opinion was also rigged. And so when they rigged the election, they thought that they had power and they pretend to give us voice. Then they rigged that voice too and pronounced themselves as being in power because of the wishes of Ghanaians. It didn't stop the change because nothing stops change. May 15th came, where the frustrations of Ghanaians began to be let out. Again, those who were in power were adamant. They thought that change can be stopped by brute force. So when the leader of the revolution was arrested, as has been counted by our previous speakers, he said that leave my men alone and deal with me. And if you eliminate one J.J. Rawlings, you have thousands and thousands of J.J. Rawlings coming up. In other words, he was saying in parables that he is not the problem. The people who are trying to speak out are not the problem. The problem is the rotten society. That something needed to be done to rescue the country. So, as we celebrate June 4th, we don't just, shall I say, well, I don't know whether it's celebration, but I would prefer to call it commemoration. As we commemorate June 4th, we should go back, look at the situation that led to June 4th, and learn lessons from June 4th. Otherwise, we will be doomed to repeat June 4th. So all of us who are happy and willing to protect the democracy, we must speak up and do something about the disease that is affecting the democracy. That is the only way we can save this democracy. Some courageous people are speaking. And again, the powers that be thinking that those who are advising are the problem. They've started using the same intimidation and the methods they applied earlier on, which did not stop June 4th. Are we not learning lessons from our history? I want to use this platform to call on all well-meaning Ghanaians that this is the time to speak up. Because already people are drawing parallels between what is happening now and what happened prior to May 15 and June 4th. But we can save our democracy. And the only way we can save the democracy is to speak up and stop the bad things. Otherwise, whoever does things the same way they have been done in the past and expects different results is certainly not correct upstairs. So, let us learn lessons from our history, and so we can change the course of our future. Some other big opinion leaders have decided to be quiet for fear of intimidation. But this is the time where you have to get up and be counted as a true patriot who wants to save the democracy we are in and to shape a future that will help us avoid a June 4th scenario. Because we cannot keep going forward and going back. We must learn from where we fell so that from lessons from that, we can chart a better future and prevent the situation where we fall in the pits that others have fallen in. There are others who are quiet. They have declared themselves neutral. But as a citizen, as an active and good citizen of this country, you will not do this country a lot of good if you keep quiet. You cannot declare yourself neutral between good and evil. It is dangerous. We better put in our voices so that the wrongs will be corrected now, in order that we don't suffer the punishment of wrongdoing. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would want to tell our leadership that those who want to help you, they tell you the truth. Those who want to help themselves, they tell you what you want to hear. If somebody wants something from you, he will come and tell you all the pleasant things so that he can get what he wants. That person is helping himself. He's not helping you. So listen to those who are speaking. They are not your enemies. They are the people who are helping you so that we can together protect this our democracy and make sure that Ghana would have a democracy based on accountability, based on a situation where the government would a free and fair opportunity for them to change their leaders or maintain their leaders. Any other thing will just create a situation for a violent change, because it has been said, it's not me who is saying it. You go read the history books, that those who block peaceful change invite violent change. Finally, we are in a country where the lawmakers will make laws and think that the laws are not applicable. That is dangerous for our democracy. COVID-19 has come. Parliament has empowered the President of the Republic to take all emergency measures necessary to deal with COVID-19. And some of these measures led to a total lockdown of the whole Accra city and Kumasi. With some of these measures, when a positive case is detected in any institution, that institution is completely closed down to prevent a situation where the disease will spread. So you close down the institution, isolate those who have been affected, and take measures to sanitize the workplace to ensure that we can contain the disease. What are we seeing now? The fish processing factory, where positive cases were detected. What happened? They closed down the factory. The wards of several hospitals in the country, where positive cases were detected among frontline staff, they had to close down certain wards. Now we are told that 13 cases have been detected in Parliament, and Parliament is still sitting. What are they telling us? Why is Parliament not closing down? Is Parliament above the laws they themselves make? Is that the democracy we are making for ourselves? Ladies and gentlemen, everybody has a responsibility to protect this democracy, and the only way we can do it is that we must insist on rule of law. There is nobody independent in this country of the law. The only people who are independent are the masses who are the repository of the sovereignty of Ghana. All other institutions, be it the presidency, Electoral Commission, Parliament, judiciary, whatever, you are all subject to the one and only Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. If we learn to behave that way, we will save this democracy. May God bless our homeland, Ghana, and make us great and strong.
Thank you, General Secretary. Indeed, may God save this country and bless our homeland, Ghana. It's the only country that we have. I have always said that if I go and I come back again, God should bring me back to Ghana. I don't want to go anywhere else. Comrades, senior party members, okay, sir. Well, I'm sure God has given me an opportunity to tell my own story. Arajies. I'm not built to speak, but so I'm not going to speak, but it's interesting. Growing up in Burma camp, witnessing the revolution or the uprising face to face, nobody told us those. We lived through it. Very heady days of June 4th. It wasn't interesting. It's been years. Those who didn't witness it with their eyes just read it. They can tell their own stories. We didn't read about it. We saw it, witnessed it, grew through it. I can still see President Rawlings at Nicholson Park bare-chested, carrying the coffins of fallen heroes or comrades. It's not interesting. That's why we are all praying that we don't go back to it. And so we must protect our democracy. And we want to believe that we will protect the democracy. Political parties must protect the sanctity of this our democracy. And I'm sure that God himself will hear our prayers. As for the stories, there are plenty. So can you give us some background music while we wait for one more patriotic song before we wait for the leader of the uprising to come and address us, so that I don't break protocol, especially in these days of WHO protocols. Thank you very much. The leader of the uprising is coming, so we will just welcome him and ho ire ire ho ire ire ho ire ire ho ire ire abwabiribo jatabiribo. Oh ire, we don't have a crowd here. Hey ire abwabiribo jatabiribo ire. And it reminds me so much of the late Forces Sergeant Major Isaac Frimpong, Red Light. May his blood soul rest in peace. They held the revolution, FSM, and he was a moral man. They did what they could do. God has lit a certain flame that cannot be quenched. Founder, leader, please, we will listen to you now. Thank you very much.
Interesting. I took that break because I thought the chairman was going to speak. I'm sorry. Yeah. And for those of you who are wondering about this Moses brush, maybe we'll call it Moses brew. Since the president has decided he will use his shaven head to get rid of coronavirus. What's it called? COVID-19. Whatever. I will use Moses' brush to get rid of it. And when it happens, then I think we can go back to our normal looks. My fellow countrymen and women, let me on your behalf say a big thank you to our soldiers and service personnel for the reward of the victory of that fateful June 4th. I thank you all, not only for June 4th, but for 31st December as well. June 4th, because people felt betrayed by the elite and political leadership at that time. I have chosen to speak less and rather allow the force of observation and the pain of circumstances to serve as a stimulus in awakening all of us from the deep sleep we have fallen into over the past decades. We must be reminded that we are a country born out of difficult situations where some had to toil and shed their blood. The positive disruptive energy, force, and energy of June 4th was not a product of any political movement or action. The spontaneous eruption on that fateful day represented the unadulterated. I was teaching somebody last night over and over how to pronounce patriotism, because the person kept on saying Petroy. Here I am having problems with unadulterated. On that fateful day represented the unadulterated spirit of liberation that was collectively sought after as a nation on the brink of collapse. Nothing more has signified or exemplified the patriotism and resilience of Ghanaians than in those difficult moments. Many were those who sacrificed their lives and livelihoods in order to bequeath to subsequent generations a more just society with equal opportunities for all, irrespective of their religion, tribe, ethnicity, political, or educational status. We must never forget our past, nor erase the memories of where we came from. Commemorations allow us to ponder, reflect, and re-examine ourselves, our conduct and policies, and to see if these have properly been aligned to our core values of probity, accountability, integrity, and social justice. The difficult times we faced in the past that propelled the engine of the revolution is almost parallel in hardship with the present era of COVID-19. But the question is, do we have the same mental fortitude and integrity that would enable us survive the circumstances of today's trials? History, it is often said, repeats itself whenever we refuse to learn, most especially from adversities and volcanic and near bloody eruptions. Most of the speakers before me spoke very well, but I find that General Mosquito's speech is pretty much in line with what I have to say, and I'm grateful for that. We have many dedicated and learned men and women who could provide leadership at various levels to the benefit of this country. The very ordinary people in Ghana are not unwise about issues and developments in this country. We are, however, as a learned group, communicate with us in the administrative English language puts them at a disadvantage and makes them unable to demand accountability and transparency from us. The spirituality and respect in the language of our culture evokes and demands integrity, accountability, and transparency. This, however, does not and cannot happen because the foreign and colonial language has been used opportunistically to intimidate and promote falsehood and degrade the essence and substance of our being. Had we as a people carried along our integrity and spirituality in our culture, a higher level, beg your pardon, in our culture and language, into the use of the administrative English language, a higher level of integrity would have been prevailing in Ghana and this continent, and the quality of liberation would have enhanced our developmental efforts. The material and immaterial corruption in this country would not have undermined our ability and capabilities to the extent where the authority of truth would have been so badly undermined by the corrupted truth of authority. I picked this up from Sadhguru a few nights ago, and I thought, how splendid. In other words, the authority of truthfulness should not be undermined by the words or supposed truths of those in positions of power or authority. The morality and authority of truth is godly and divine, and it should always supersede and override the truth of the authority of mortals. Ladies and gentlemen, we, in this little Ghana of ours, have so we've mastered the art of untruth in our books, on our radios, on our televisions, and now through the internet, so much so that historical truths and facts are struggling to be recognized. People are paid so much money, corrupt money, to distort and lie about historical truths and facts. Is it any wonder that the precious lessons we should be learning are invariably lost on us? And we end up committing the same blunders over and over. The royal families of France and Russia were executed for their corrupt and unaccountable leadership. The royal families who learned their lessons from France and Russia embarked upon serious democratic reforms, and that is why the royal family of England and other places in Europe have survived. Instead of learning useful lessons from our not too distant past, here in Ghana, where we saw and tasted it live, some have made it their business to corrupt others, to distort and wipe out our history. These people, with selfish, myopic, and wicked motives, have consistently represented a one-sided, a corrupt-sided story of a history that should serve as a guide for the future and ensure that we do not make the same mistakes that led to the eruptions of the past. But no. Where have the distortions taken us? What has the failure to tell the truth done to us? Has it not brought us right back almost to where we started? We have rather belittled the national psyche. We could have been far richer socially, culturally, and economically. But for our negative desire to destroy the inspirational history that could have lifted us onto another pedestal. It's an old man's cough. It's not coronavirus. Thank you. Thank you. Madam Z. Is that Z? But that's here. You think I couldn't recognize you? The things I'm getting old. You saw without my glasses, I can't see, but she doesn't know I've got my glasses on. Can't she see I've got my glasses on? Wanonyi, she did an interview on Nigerian television. You should see it. She was a sight to behold. I'm really proud of this lady, you know. But she's a rock iron ass. Oh, so far. Move bread. What is that new mommy? Onto another pedestal. Ladies and gentlemen, when people shamelessly attempt to erase the truth because they lack scruples, it rather perpetuates a state of corruption that derails all we have achieved while glorifying exploitation, perversion, dishonesty, immorality, and criminality. I have countless examples of the evil actions reality. More painful is the fact that while we expect some of these historical distortions to come from our natural opponents, some within our own persistently have decided it was time to join the bandwagon and rewrite the history that birthed our political culture. Ladies and gentlemen, last year I spoke about how the intelligence machinery of the former apartheid regime of South Africa used to pay treacherous black African characters from our countries to continue misbehaving. This served disinformation. Because the post-apartheid leadership of South Africa has been silent about some of these traitors, across this continent, and I'm not unaware of one from this country. They're doing a lot of perfidious work. I urge the South Africans to expose these apartheid collaborators, some of whom parade in their countries as patriots after performing these unconscionable things, these extremely repulsive acts. They should give us a break, expose them to shut them up. Ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19. Early this year, the world was struck, as you know, by a pandemic whose effects eventually affected every facet of our lives. Despite the interventions from state institutions to alleviate the plight of the underprivileged, there is still a lot to be done by all of us in our very own communities to support the most vulnerable groups. The health force across the country, some of whom have been infected with the virus, in the line of duty have taught us a sense of purpose, selflessness, commitment, dedication, and patriotism. I commend all health workers, as well as all other frontline workers, for proving equal to the task in this defining moment of ours. Fellow compatriots, we have hurt our own by institutionalizing corruption for far too long, given a little few the access to amass wealth at the risk of the livelihood of the ordinary people who are languishing in poverty and misery. Ladies and gentlemen, national monuments, groups, events, institutions, and important state assets are labeled after some very deserving individuals to inspire and direct subsequent generations on the good path they must emulate, namely courage, the spirit of patriotism, resilience, and integrity. In some instances, it serves as a crucial reminder for history's defining moments. In Ghana, these actions that certainly influence us are sometimes, unfortunately, taken for granted. And unsurprisingly, some important roads in Accra have been named after undeserving personalities. Such actions, one of which was done purposely to spite the Ghana Armed Forces, is an affront to many. There are many distinguished African figures, such as our own General Erskine, General Akufo, Commodore Boachi Admiral Amedume, Colonel Mensah Berima, General Nunu Mensah, who's here with us, General Arnold Queno, Brigadier Alphonse Kojo Carter, Ayikwe Yama, Nigeria's Wole Soyinka and Chinua Achebe, and a couple more who merit such honor. In like manner, another administration, in fact the most offensive administration, desecrated the Kwame Nkrumah mausoleum and rendered it a sheer family cemetery. Ladies and gentlemen, our democracy is born out of fire, and we must dearly and compassionately protect its flames. Let's not leave it to go cold, flame out. One of the key institutional arms of this democratic discourse, from pre-colonial to modern-day Ghana, is the protection of right and choice. We must endeavor as a nation to deepen the spirit of the consultative process, equity, respect for the rule of law, or in simple terms, the tenet of democracy and multi-party democracy. The Electoral Commission, which is the fulcrum of our multi-party democracy, must be supported and protected by all stakeholders to ensure a free and fair election and a peaceful society. That notwithstanding, it is equally important for that revered institution to ensure that the processes leading to this year's elections are done in consultation with the stakeholders of the nation to prevent unnecessary suspicion and promote a peaceful and cohesive society. An election is an event, but building a democratic, free and peaceful society is a process. So the debate surrounding the new voters register must be thoroughly examined so we do not undermine the successes we have chalked so far as a nation. In addition, the constitutional mandate of the Electoral Commission must be respected by all. While we work towards perfecting our electoral process, I urge you all to pursue and sustain our uniqueness as a country in the democratization process. The sanctity of the right of choice is not a matter we can compromise on. That sanctity must be preserved at all costs. And as we inch towards November, let us ensure that the institutional processes are transparent and beyond blemish. Freedom and justice is not abstract. It is very much related to the sanctity of the right of choice. Those who are eligible to exercise that right of choice should not and cannot be disenfranchised by dictates that defeat one's right to vote. The sanctity of justice should be preserved and protected, with all of us being subject to the practice of what is just. An unjust society deepens the iniquities that exist. The patriotic zeal that gave birth to June 4 is one that cannot be extinguished. Any attempt to compromise on the ideals of probity, accountability, and integrity in our everyday lives is an attempt to snuff out the light that was lit 41 years ago. Let us honor the memories of those who laid down their lives liberating Ghana. This has been a fairly short address. There were so many things I was hoping to share with you. Some of the very callous things that happened after I left office, all designed to turn the face of the ship 180 degrees. Disgraceful things. And it took so long. 4 years, another 4 years. And I kept insisting to Professor Mills, please investigate this, that one, this one. But no. Some of his handlers decided to make a so-called enemy out of me, and rather decided to carry on that way. See where we are today? The loss we suffered in this last election could have happened, I think, was it in 2012? It would have been one of the most disgraceful losses we'd ever suffered. A party that was not built by Rawlings. It was, the closest to it was probably Nkrumah CPP. It was born out of the people, the revolt of June 4th, 31st PNDC, and then 92 constitutional estate. People have the tendency of calling, I entered democratic rule in 92. And I correct them, I say, no, I didn't enter democratic. Constitutional rule in 92, but democracy started well before then. Yes. It was one of the finest times in our history. We need to talk about this a lot more. Some of the intellectuals in our party have been a real letdown. They'll open their mouths. I don't hear much coming out of their mouths. Just a handful of them. They should boldly draw the picture for you to see. How many of you have actually asked yourself, an administration, one after the other, going out of her territory, her borders, to go and fight socialist governments, communist governments? A man emerges in their midst at this late hour, professed to be a socialist, and has so much of the youth supporting him. When I saw this, I was asking, Americans thinking, do they realize what is happening in their country? I think you would want me to continue, wouldn't you? No. I'll give you people a break. We'll meet again. I thank you very much. Not even the so-called socialists here have ever bothered to school, educate Ghanaians in their socialist beliefs. Jesus Christ, the biggest socialist, was actually snatched by these so-called capitalists. And they made an icon of him, the Son of God, and whatever it is, a God to be worshipped. And they've completely disregarded the life of Christ and what he stood for, what he did with his time and energy. You get me? Are you sure? Later. I'm not done. Hello. Sit down.
Well, I don't know whether I'm emotional or I'm passionate. Certainly I'm not angry. No. Maybe a bit emotional. The leader of the uprising has spoken. And he talks about the flame that lit that uprising. And for that matter, the flame that lit the NDC. The lies on social media. I happened to travel with the founder and the leader to Ho to go and commiserate with the regional chairman, Comrade Ametepe, who had lost the wife. The Friday prior to that movement, the founder had been so insulted on social media, only because he attended the funeral of the late Brigadier Ahiaglo, and some picture was captured of him having supposedly sat and turned his back to the flag bearer of the NDC. So insulted until we got to Ho and he asked Dan to go into the vehicle and pick up a pillow. And when that pillow was brought, he showed it to everybody and said, "This is the pillow that I've been sitting on in my vehicle for years. Because as a young officer, I tried landing on the parachute. I didn't land well and my back has been aching me for decades. So when I sit, I have to sit and turn every now and then until I'm comfortable." Yet, he's insulted. Me, I'm insulted. People are paid. Go insult him. Call him names. The other side, they have the airtime. They propagate what they want to propagate. We have airtime, and it's to cast aspersions at our own. Call them names. Traitors. Whatever. Well, the flame has been lit. Today we are spending the anniversary. It's up to leadership. There's the desire, there's the passion. But if you don't lead and lead well, don't blame anybody for your woes. Every team coach decides the players who will play on the team. If you are not even in the reserve, you dare not wear a jersey and go on the pitch. It's against the rules. Coaches should choose their teams and be responsible for the results of the games that they encounter. We have been here today. 41 years ago, if the coach and the leader did not lead us onto the park and the pitch to win matches, we won't be celebrating June 4th. Those of us who have come after him, let us play matches and win the matches. We may not win everything, but with conduct and a clean heart, I'm sure we can win many more matches. The orchestration on social media is enough, and people must be called to order. At this juncture, Founder will thank you for your words of exhortation. The flame shall not die, the passion shall not die. Those of us who know what you stand for will continue to support what you stood for. Of course. And your daughter, when she was working in Honorable Senator, you mentioned her name. They say you hate the NDC. Yet your daughter is a member of parliament on the ticket of the NDC. Those who say you hate the NDC, how many of them have put their children in the forefront of NDC politics? Imam, can you give us the closing prayers? Thank you for your leadership, sir.
Can we please once again rise on our feet? أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت فإنك تقضي بالحق ولا يقضى عليه إنه لا يذل من واليت ولا يعز من عاديت لك الحمد على ما قضيت ولك الشكر على ما أعطيت نستغفرك اللهم من جميع الذنوب والخطايا ونتوب إليك لا منجا ولا منجا منك إلا إليك اللهم إنا أعوذ بك من البرص والجنون والجزام ومن سيء الأسكان اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت ورحمت وباركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. God bless our ex-president and God bless our homeland Ghana. Assalamu alaikum.
Well, thank you very much, all of you here present. Squadron Leader Dagbe joined us at the tail end. He's here, sir. Squadron Leader Dagbe. The Group Captain Fojo, General Nunu Mensah, Honorable Samuel Nyama Donko, Dr. Benjamin Kumbo, Ambassador Dana Bodakwi, Honorable Fusampo, Honorable Aseniketia. We thank you very much. And we believe. Party anthem, give it to us. Yes, maybe. There will be a brief refreshment. So please don't go. At least COVID has reduced the numbers, so we can manage.
Arise for Ghana, operation of the land, forward and seek your future, development our God, from vision to be, the end is surely, Democrat, Ghana. Our strength in unity, from vision to be, the end is surely, Democrat, Ghana, our strength in unity.
Okay. So the reception will take place. Social distancing, social protocols. Those who want to take a quick picture with the leader, please do it quickly so that the picture opportunity. Social distancing, social protocol. Also interacting as much as possible.